Chapter O, the magical theory of the universe. There are three main theories of the universe: dualism, monism, and nihilism. It is impossible to enter into a discussion of their relative merits in a popular manual of this sort. They may be studied in Ehrman's History of Philosophy and similar treatises. All are reconciled and unified in the theory which we shall now set forth. The basis of this harmony is given in Crowley's Bereshith, to which reference should be made. Infinite space is called the goddess Nuit, while the infinitely small and atomic yet omnipresent point is called Hadith. These are unmanifest. One conjunction of these infinites is called Rahor Kuit, a unity which includes and heads all things. There is also a particular nature of him in certain conditions, such as have obtained since the spring of 1904. This profoundly mystical conception is based upon actual spiritual experience, but the trained reason can reach a reflection of this idea by the method of logical contradiction which ends in reason transcending itself. The reader should consult The Soldier and the Hunchback and Quonks Pax. Unity transcends consciousness. It is above all division. The father of thought, the word, is called chaos, the dyad. The number 3, the mother, is called Babylon. In connection with this, the reader should study Liber LV3 and Liber 418. This first triad is essentially unity, a matter transcending reason. The comprehension of this trinity is a matter of spiritual experience. All true gods are attributed to this trinity. An immeasurable abyss divides it from all manifestations of reason or the lower qualities of man. In the ultimate analysis of reason, we find all reason identified with this abyss. Yet this abyss is the crown of the mind. Purely intellectual faculties all obtain here. This abyss has no number, for in it all is confusion. Below this abyss we find the moral qualities of man, of which there are 6. The highest is symbolized by the number 4. Its nature is fatherly. Mercy and authority are the attributes of its dignity. The number 5 is balanced against it. The attributes of 5 are energy and justice. 4 and 5 are again combined and harmonized in the number 6, whose nature is beauty and harmony, mortality and immortality. In the number 7, the feminine nature is again predominant, but it is the masculine type of female, the Amazon, who is balanced in the number 8 by the feminine type of male. In the number 9, we reach the last of the purely mental qualities. It's identified change, and stability. Pendant to this sixfold system is the number 10, which includes the whole of matter as we know it by the senses. It is impossible here to explain thoroughly the complete conception, for it cannot be too clearly understood that this is a classification of the universe, that there is nothing which is not comprehended therein. Liber LV3, the article on the Kabbalah in the Equinox, is the best which has been written on this subject. It should be deeply studied in connection with the Kabbalistic diagrams in Notes 2 and 3, the Temple of Solomon the King. Such is a crude and elementary sketch of the system. The formula of Tetragrammaton is the most important for the practical magician. Here Yod is 2, He is 3, Vav is 4, to 9, He. Final is 10. The number 2 represents Yod, the divine or archetypal world, and the number 1 is only attained by the destruction of the god and the magician in Samait High. The archangelic world is under the number 3, the world of angels is under the numbers 4 to 9, and that of spirits under the number 10. All these numbers are, of course, parts of the magician himself considered as the microcosm. The microcosm is an exact image of the macrocosm. The great work is the rising of the whole man in perfect balance to the power of infinity. The reader will remark that all criticism directed against the magical hierarchy is futile. One cannot call it incorrect. The only line to take might be that it was inconvenient. In the same way, one cannot say that the Roman alphabet is better or worse than the Greek, since all required sounds can be more or less satisfactorily represented by either. Yet both these alphabets were found so little satisfactory when it came to an attempt at phonetic printing of Oriental languages, that the alphabet had to be expanded by the use of italics and other diacritical marks. In the same way, our magical alphabet of the Sephiroth and the paths has been expanded into the 4 worlds, corresponding to the 4 letters of the name. Yod, He, Vav, He. Vav, He. Omitted. And each Sephiroth is supposed to contain a tree of life of its own. Thus we obtain 400 Sephiroth instead of the original 9, and the paths being capable of similar multiplication, or rather of subdivision. The number is still further extended. Of course, this process might be indefinitely continued without destroying the original system. The apologia for the system is that our purest conceptions are symbolized in mathematics. God is the great arithmetician, God is the grand geometer. It is best therefore to prepare to apprehend him by formulating our minds according to these measures. To return, each letter of this alphabet may have its special magical sigil. The student must not expect to be given a cut and dry definition of what exactly is meant by any of all this. On the contrary, he must work backwards, putting the whole of his mental and moral outfit into these pigeonholes. You would not expect to be able to buy a filing cabinet with the names of all your past, present, and future correspondents ready indexed. Your cabinet has a system of letters and numbers meaningless in themselves, but ready to take on a meaning to you as you fill up the files. As your business increased, each letter and number will receive fresh accessions of meaning for you. By adopting this orderly arrangement, you would be able to have a much more comprehensive grasp of your affairs than would otherwise be the case. By the use of this system, the magician is able to ultimately to unify the whole of his knowledge, to transmute, even on the intellectual plane, the many into the one. The reader can now understand that the sketch given above of the magical hierarchy is hardly even an outline of the real theory of the universe. This theory may indeed be studied in the article already referred to, Liber ABA 3, and more deeply in the Book of the Law and the commentaries therein, but the true understanding depends entirely upon the work of the magician himself. Without magical experience, it will be meaningless. In this there is nothing peculiar. It is so with all scientific knowledge. A blind man might cram up astronomy for the purpose of passing examinations, but his knowledge will be almost entirely unrelated to his experience, and it would certainly not give him sight. A similar phenomenon is observed when a gentleman who has taken an honours degree in modern languages at Cambridge arrives in Paris and is unable to order his dinner. To exclaim against the master Therion is to act like a person who, observing this, should attack both the professors of French and the inhabitants of Paris, and perhaps go on to deny the existence of France. Let us say once again that the magical language is nothing but a convenient system of classifications to enable the magician to docket his experiences as he obtains them. Yet this is true also, that once the language is mastered, one can divine the unknown by the study of the known, just as one's knowledge of Latin and Greek enables one to understand some unfamiliar English word derived from those sources. Also, there is this similar case of the periodic law in chemistry, which enables science to prophesy, and so in the end to discover the existence of certain previously unsuspected elements in nature. All discussions upon philosophy are necessarily sterile, since truth is beyond language. They are, however, useful if carried far enough, if carried to the point when it becomes apparent that all arguments are arguments in a circle. But discussions of the details of purely imaginary qualities are frivolous, and may be deadly. For the great danger of this magical theory is that the student may mistake the alphabet for the things which the words represent. An excellent man of great intelligence, a learned Kabbalist, once amazed the master Therion by stating that the tree of life was the framework of the universe. It was as if someone had seriously maintained that a cat was a creature constructed by placing the letter CAT in that order. It is no wonder that magic has excited the ridicule of the unintelligent, since even its educated students can be guilty of so gross a violation of the first principles of common sense. Long since writing the above, or even grosser imbecility has been perpetuated. One who ought to have known better tried to improve the tree of life by turning the serpent of wisdom upside down. Yet he could not even make his scheme symmetrical. His little remaining good sense revolted at the supreme atrocities. Yet he succeeded in reducing the whole magical alphabet to nonsense, and showing that he had never understood its real meaning. The absurdity of any such disturbance of the arrangement of the paths is evident to any sober student from such examples as the following. Baina, the supernal understanding, is connected with Tiferet, the human consciousness, by Zayin, Gemini, the oracles of the gods or the intuition. That is the attribution represents a psychological fact. To replace it by the devil is either humor or plain idiocy. Again, the card Fortitude, Lust, Leo, balances majesty and mercy with strength and severity. What sense is there in putting Death, the Scorpion, in its stead? There are 20 other mistakes in the new wonderful illuminated from on high attribution. The student can therefore be sure of 20 more laughs if he cares to study it. A synopsis of the grades of the AA, as illustrative of the magical hierarchy in man, is given in Appendix 2. 1 star in sight. This should be read before proceeding with the chapter. The subject is very difficult to deal with it, and full is entirely beyond the limits of this small treatise. Further concerning the magical universe. All these letters of the magical alphabet referred to above are like so many names on a map. Man himself is a complete microcosm. Few other things have this balanced perfection. Of course, every sun, every planet, may have beings similarly constituted. But when we speak of dealing with the planets in magic, the reference is usually not to the actual planets, but to parts of the earth which are of the nature attributed to these planets. Thus, when we say that Nakhil is the intelligence of the sun, we do not mean that he lives in the sun, but only that he has a certain rank and character, and although we can invoke him, we do not necessarily mean that he exists in the same sense of the word in which our butcher exists. When we conjure Nakhil to visible appearance, it may be that our process resembles creation, or rather imagination, more nearly than it does calling forth. The aura of a man is called the magical mirror of the universe, and, so far as anyone can tell, nothing exists outside of this mirror. It is at least convenient to represent the whole work as if it were subjective. It leads to less confusion, and as a man is a perfect microcosm, it is perfectly easy to remodel one's conception at any moment. Now there is a traditional correspondence which modern experiment has shown to be fairly reliable. There is a certain natural connection between certain letters, words, numbers, gestures, shapes, perfumes, and so on, so that any idea or, as we might call it, spirit may be composed or called forth by the use of those things which are harmonious with it and express particular parts of its nature. These correspondences have been elaborately mapped in the book 777 in a very convenient and compendious form. It will be necessary for the student to make a careful study of this book in connection with some actual rituals of magic, for example, that of the evocation of Tefrathareth, where he will see exactly why these things are to be used. Of course, as the student advances in knowledge by experience, he will find a progressive subtlety in the magical universe corresponding to his own. For, let it be yet said again, not only is our aura a magical mirror of the universe, but the universe is a magical mirror of his aura. In this chapter, we are only able to give a very thin outline of magical theory, faint penciling by weak and wavering fingers, for the subject may almost be said to be co-extensive with one's whole knowledge. The knowledge of esoteric science is comically limited by the fact that we have no access, except in the most indirect way, to any other celestial body than our own. In the last few years, the semi-educated have gotten an idea that they know a great deal about the universe, and the principal ground for their fine opinion of themselves is usually the telephone or the airship. It is pitiful to read the bombastic twaddle about progress, which journalists and others, who wish to prevent men from thinking, put out for consumption. We know infinitesimally little of the material universe. Our detailed knowledge is so contemptibly minute that it is hardly worth reference, save that our shame may spur us to increased endeavor. Such knowledge as we have got it is of a very general and abstruse, of a philosophical and almost magical character. This consists principally of the conceptions of pure mathematics. It is therefore almost legitimate to say that pure mathematics is our link with the rest of the universe and with God. Now the conceptions of magic are themselves very profoundly mathematical. The whole basis of our theory is the Kabbalah, which corresponds to mathematics and geometry. The method of operation in magic is based on this, in very much the same way as the laws of mechanics are based on mathematics. So far, therefore, as we can be said to possess a magical theory of the universe, It must be a matter solely of fundamental law, with a few simple and comprehensive propositions stated in very general terms. I might expend a lifetime in exploring the details of one plane, just as an explorer might give his life to one corner of Africa, or a chemist to one subgroup of compounds. Each such detailed piece of work may be very valuable, but it does not as a rule throw light on the main principle of the universe. Its truth is the truth of one angle. It might even lead to error, for some inferior person were to generalize from too few facts. Imagine an inhabitant of Mars who wished to philosophize about the Earth and had nothing to go by but the diary of some man at the North Pole. But the work of every explorer, or on whatever branch of the tree of life the caterpillar he is after may happen to be crawling, is immensely helped by a grasp of general principles. Every magician therefore should study the Holy Kabbalah. Once he has mastered the main principles, he will find his work grow easy. Salubitur ambulando, which does not mean call the ambulance.